हाय फ्रेंड्स, आज हम इंडियन पॉलिटी का डिस्कस कर रहे हैं। तो इट चैप्टर नेम इज फंडामेंटल राइट्स। तो हम 200 पेज तक आ गए हैं। तो हम और जो 4 5 6 7 और 8 जो पेज है तो उसको हम डिस्कस करेंगे। लास्ट में चले आए हैं तो ठीक है, इसका पहले पार्ट भी देख सकते हैं। और लेट्स स्टार्ट आवर डिस्कशन। नाउ वी डिस्कस अफेक्टिंग सर्टेन फंडामेंटल राइट्स। ओके, Article 35 lays down that the power to make laws, the power to make laws to give effect on certain specified fundamental rights. Article 35 lays down that the power to make laws to give effect to certain specified to give effect on to certain specified fundamental rights shall vest only in the Parliament. Okay, and not in the state legislature. These provisions ensure that there is uniformity throughout India with regard to the nature of those fundamental rights and punishment for their infringement. In this direction, Article 35 contains the following provision. Okay, this provision ensures that there is uniformity throughout the India with regard to the nature to those fundamental rights and punishment for the infringement. In this direction, Article 35 contains the following provision. The Parliament shall have and the legislature of a state shall not have power. Parliament shall have and the legislature shall not of a state shall not have power to make law with respect to the following matters: prescribing the residence of a conditions for certain employments, appointments in the state or union territory or local authority or other authority, empowering courts other than the Supreme Court and the High Court to issue directions, order and rights of all kinds for the enforcement of the fundamental rights. Article 32. Empowering courts other than Supreme Court, okay, and the High Courts to issue direction, orders, okay, rights of all kinds for the enforcement of fundamental rights. Article 32. Restricting or abrogating the application of fundamental rights. Restricting or abrogating the application of fundamental rights to members of armed force, police force, etc. Article 33. Identifying any government servant or any other person for any act done during the personal or marital loss of any area. Article 34. Identifying any government servants or any other person of any act done during operation of the marital law in any area. Parliament shall have and the legislature of the state shall not have powers to make laws for prescribing punishment for those acts. Okay, and next में देखेंगे offenders under the fundamental rights. This includes the following: untouchability, Article 70, trafficking in human being, offences under fundamental rights, and this includes following: untouchability, Article 70, traffic in human beings, forced labor, Article 23. Further, the Parliament shall have and commencement of the Constitution make laws for the prescribing punishment for the above facts. Parliament shall after the commencement of the Constitution make laws for prescribing punishment for the above facts, thus making it obligatory on the part of the Parliament to enact such law. Further, the Parliament shall after the commencement of the Constitution, Parliament make laws prescribing punishment for the above facts and making it obligatory on the part of the Parliament to enact such laws. Any law in force at the commencement of the Constitution with respect to any of the matters specified above it to continuing in force until altered or repealed or amended by the Parliament देखिए, any law in force at the commencement of constitution, okay, any law in force at the constitution, any respect to any of the matters specified above is to continue in force until altered or repealed to arm to amend by the parliament. It should be noted that Article 35 extends the competence of the parliament. Article 35 extends the competence in the parliament of the parliament to make laws on the matters specified above, even though some of those matters may fall within the sphere of the state legislature. It should be noted that Article 35 extends the competence of the parliament to make laws of the matters specified above. Again, important, Article 35 empowers extends to the competence of the parliament to make a law, okay, on the matters specified above, even though some of those matters may fall within the sphere of the state legislature. State list. Present position of the right to property. Originally, the right to property was one of the 7 fundamental rights, okay, under Part 3 of the Constitution. 7 fundamental rights of the Constitution, okay, 7 fundamental rights under the Part 3 of the Constitution, okay, right to property. It was dealt with by Article 19(1)(f) and Article 31. Article 19(1)(f) guaranteed every citizen the right to acquire, hold and dispose of property. Article 31, on the other hand, guaranteed to every यहाँ पर कुछ मिस्टेक हो गया है, ठीक है. No, यहाँ पर दिया है प्रेजेंट पोजीशन ऑफ द फंडामेंटल राइट्स. ओके, प्रेजेंट पोजीशन. Okay, so Article 31, on the other hand, guaranteed to every position, whether citizens or non-citizens, right against deprivation of the property. It provides that no person shall be deprived of the property except by authority or of law. It empowers the state to acquire or requisition the property of a person or two conditions. It for no person shall be deprived of the property except the authority of law. It empowered the state to acquire or requisition the property of a person of two conditions. It should be for public purpose, and it should be provided for payment of compensation amount to the owner. Since the commencement of the Constitution, the fundamental rights of property has been the most controversial. Property is the most controversial. It has caused confrontation between the Supreme Court and the Parliament. It has caused confrontation between the Supreme Court and Parliament. It has led to a number of constitutional amendments, that is 1, 4, 7, 25, 39, 40 and 42nd Amendment. Though these amendments, Article 31, 30B, 31B, 31C, have been added and modified from time to time to nullify the effect of Supreme Court judgment and to protect certain laws from being challenged on the grounds of contravention of fundamental rights. Most of the litigation centers around the obligation of the state to pay compensation for acquisition or requisition of private property. Since the commencement of the Constitution, the fundamental rights to property has been the more controversial. It has caused confrontation between the Supreme Court and the Parliament. It has led to a number of constitutional amendments, first, 4th, 7th, 25th, 39, 40, 42nd Amendment. So, though these amendments, Article 31A, 32AB, 32, 31C, have been added and modified from time to time to nullify and the effect of Supreme Court judgment and to protect certain laws from being challenged on the ground of contravention of fundamental rights. Okay, most of the litigations centered around the obligation of the state to pay compensation or acquisition of requisition of private property. Therefore, 44th Amendment Act 1978 abolished the right to property. Okay, 44th Amendment 1978 abolished the right to property as a fundamental right, but by repealing Article 91 F 1901F. Okay. Therefore, 44th Amendment Act 1978 abolished the right to property as a fundamental right by repealing Article 19(1)(f) and Article 31 from the Part 3. Instead, the Act instead the new Article 300A in Part 12 under the heading Right to Property. Okay, it provides that no person shall be deprived of his property except by authority of law. Thus, the right to property still remains a legal right or a constitutional right. Right to property still remains a legal right or a constitutional right, though no longer a fundamental right. It is not a part of the basic structure of the Constitution. Okay, no longer a fundamental right. It is not a part of the basic structure of the Constitution. The right to property as a legal right, as distinct from the fundamental rights, has the following implications. It can be regulated, that is, curtailed, abridged, or nullly modified without constitutional amendment by the ordinary law of the Parliament. Though right to property as a legal right, as distinct from the fundamental rights, has the following implication. It can be regulated, that is, curtailed, abridged, or modified without constitutional amendment but in ordinary laws of the Parliament. It protects private property against executive action but not against legislative action. It protects private property against executive action but not against legislative action. In case of violation, the aggrieved person cannot directly move the Supreme to the Supreme Court under Article 32. In case of the violation, the aggrieved person cannot directly move to the Supreme Court under Article 32. Right to constitutional remedies, including rights for its enforcement. He can move the High Court under Article 226. No guaranteed rights to compensation in case of acquisition or to requisition of the private property by the state. Okay. In case of the violation, the aggrieved person cannot directly move to the Supreme Court, Article 32, at the constitutional remedy, including rights. Okay. He can move the High Court under 226. No guaranteed right to compensation is in case of acquisition or requisition. No guaranteed right to compensation. Okay. In case of acquisition or requisition of the private property by the state, though the fundamental rights under Part 3 has been abolished, the Part 3 still carries two provisions which provide for the guaranteed right to compensation in case of acquisition or requisition of the private property by the state. These two cases where compensation has to be paid are when the state acquires the property of a minority educational institution. When the state acquires the property of a minority educational institution, Article 30. When the state acquires the land held by a person under the personal cultivation and the land is within the statutory selling limits, Article 31A. When the states acquire the land held by a person under his personal cultivation and the land is within the statutory selling limits, Article 31A. The first provision was added by the 44th Amendment Act 1978, while the second provision was added in 17th Amendment Act 1964. Further, Article 31B/31C has been retained and excludes exceptions to the fundamental rights. saving the laws providing for acquisition of estates, etc. Article 31 is saves 5 categories of laws being challenged and invalidated on the ground of contravention of the fundamental rights conferred the Article 14 equality before law and equal protection of laws, and Article 90 protected of 6 rights in respect of speech, assembly, movement. Okay, they are related to agriculture, land reforms, industry, and commerce, and includes the following: acquisition of estates are related rights to by the states, taking over the management of properties by the state, amalgamation of corporations, extinguishment of modification of rights of directions or shareholder of corporation, and extinguishment of or modification of mining leases. Article 31 it does not immunize a state law from judicial review unless it has been reserved for a president's consideration and has received by assent. Article 31 does not immunize state laws from judicial review unless it has been reserved for the president's consideration and has received his assent. This article also provides for the payment of compensation at market value when the state acquired the land held by a person under his personal cultivation and the land is within the statutory selling limit. The article also provides for the payment of compensation at market value when the state acquires the land held by a person under his personal cultivation and the land is within the statutory selling limit. The article also provides the payment of compensation of market value and state acquires the land held personal selling limit. Okay. The validation of certain acts. Okay, validation of certain acts and one regulation. 31B saves the acts regulation included in the 9th schedule. Okay, 31B saves acts and regulation included in the 9th schedule for being challenged and invalidated on the ground of contravention of any of the fundamental rights. Thus, the scope of Article 31B is wider than the 31A. Okay, Article 31B immunize the and law included in the 9th schedule. Okay, from all the fundamental rights, whether or not the law falls under any of the 5 categories specified in Article 31A. However, in a significant judgment delivered by in Eller Coelho case 2007, the Supreme Court ruled that there could not be any blanket immunity from the judicial review of laws included in the 9th schedule. The court held that judicial review is a basic feature of the Constitution and it could not be taken away by putting a law under the 9th schedule. 31B saves the regulation of the included 9th schedule from being challenged and invalidated on the ground of contravention any of the fundamental rights. Thus, the scope of the Article 31B is wider than the Article 31A. The Article 31B immunize the law included 9th schedule from all the fundamental rights, whether or not the law falls under the 5 categories specified Article 31A. However, it is in a significant judgment delivered Eller Coelho case. Okay. So the Supreme Court has ruled that there could not be any blanket immunity from judicial review. Okay, or laws included in the 9th schedule. The court held that judicial review is a basic feature of the Constitution and it could be taken away by putting putting a law under the 9th schedule. It said that the laws placed under the 9th schedule after April 24, 1973 are open to challenge any in court if they violated fundamental rights guaranteed under the Article 14, 15 and 19 and 21 basic structure of the Constitution. It has structure. It has April 24, 1973 that the Supreme Court first propounded the doctrine of the basic structure and basic feature of the Constitution. Okay, and Constitution in its landmark verdict by in the Kesavananda Bharati case. Originally 1951 ninth schedule contained only 13 acts and regulations, but at present 2016 there is the number 282 20 of these the acts and regulations of the state legislature deal with the land reforms and abolition of the zamindari system, and that of the parliament deal with the other matters, saving the laws giving effect to certain directive principle. Article 31C, as instated by the 25th Amendment Act 1971, contains certain following two provisions: no law that seeks to implement. Okay, Article 31C, 25th Amendment Act, and contains following two provisions: no law that seeks to implement in the socialistic directive principles specified in Article 39B, 221 and C22. Okay, 39 C22 shall be void on the ground of okay, void on the ground of contravention of the fundamental rights conferred by Article 14, equality before the law and equal protection of the law. Article 9, protection of 6 rights in respect to speech, assembly, movement, etc. No laws containing a detailed declaration that it is for giving effect to such policy shall be questioned in any court on the ground that it does not give effect to such policy. In the Kesavananda Bharati case 1973, the Supreme Court declared that the second provision of the Article 31C unconstitutional and valid on the ground of the judicial review as a basic feature of the Constitution, and hence cannot be taken away. Okay. However, the above first provision of Article 31C was held to be constitutional and valid. The 42nd Amendment Act 1973 extended the scope of the above first provision, and Article 31C, including within the protection of any law to implement any of the directive principles specified in Part 4 of the Constitution, and not merely to Article 39 BC. However, this extension was declared as unconstitutional and invalid by the Supreme Court in the Minerva Mills case 1980. ठीक है तो यहाँ पर क्या in the Kesavananda Bharati Supreme Court declared that the second provision of the Article 31C, okay, 31C unconstitutional and invalid on the ground of judicial review is a basic feature of the Constitution, and hence cannot be taken away. However, the first provision of Article 31C was held to be constitutional and valid. The 42nd Amendment Act 1970 extended the scope, and above first provision 31C included within its provision and laws to implement any of the directive principles specified in Part 4 of the Constitution, and not merely Article 39 BC. However, this extension was declared as unconstitutional and invalid by the Supreme Court in the Minerva Mills case 1980. Criticism of the fundamental rights. The fundamental rights enshrined in Part 3 of the Constitution have met with a wide and varied criticism. The arguments of the criticism are excessive limitation and no social economic rights. They are subjected to enumerable exceptions in restrictions, qualification, and exploration. Since the critics remarked that the Constitution grants fundamental rights with one hand and takes them away with the other. Also grants fundamental rights with one hand and takes them away with the other. Okay, Jaspat Rai Kapoor went to the extent of saying that chapter dealing with fundamental rights should be renamed Limitation on Fundamental Rights and Limitation Theorem. Okay, also no social and economic rights. The list is not comprehensive as it mainly consists of political rights. It makes no provision to implement important social and economic rights like right to social security, right to work, right to employment, right to rest and leisure, and so on. These rights are made available to the citizens of advanced democratic countries. Also, the socialistic constitution of Westphal. Here, right to rest and leisure, and so on. These rights are made available on the citizens of advanced democratic countries. Also, socialist countries, constitution of Israel, USSR, or China provided on such rights. No clarity. No clarity. They are stated in a vague, indefinite, and ambiguous manner. The various phrases of the words used in the chapter public order, minorities, regional restriction, public interest, and so on are not clearly defined. The language used to describe them is very complicated and beyond the comprehensive of the common man. It is alleged that the constitution was made by lawyers for the lawyers. Yes. Sir Ivor Jennings called the Constitution of India, okay, paradise of the lawyers, okay. There was no permanency, okay. There is no sacrosanct or immutable as a parliament can curtail or abolish them. For example, the abolition of fundamental rights of a right to property is in 1978. Hence, they can become a play tool in the hands of politicians having their support in the parliament. The judicial involvement doctrine of the basic structure is the only limitation. Doctrine of the basic structure, judicial involvement doctrine of the basic structure is the only limitation of the authority of parliament to curtail or to abolish fundamental rights. Suspension during emergency. Suspension during emergency. The suspension of the enforcement during the operation of national emergency, except Article 30 and Article 20 and 21, is another blot on the deficiency of these rights. The provision cuts on the rights of democratic system in the country. It placing the rights of the millions of the innocent people in continuous jeopardy. According to the critics, fundamental rights could be enjoyable in all situations, emergency or no emergency. Expensive remedy. Okay, the judiciary. The judiciary has been made responsible for defending and protecting these rights against the interference of the legislation or executives. Okay, the judiciary has been made responsible for defending or protecting these rights against the interference of the legislature or executives. However, the judicial process is too expensive and hinders the common man from getting his rights enforced through the court. Hence, the critics say that the rights benefits mainly the rich section of the Indian society. Preventive detention. The critics assert that the provision for preventive detention, with Article 22, takes away the spirit of the substance of the chapter of fundamental rights. The confers arbitrary powers on the states and negates individual liberty. It justifies the criticism that the Constitution of India deals more with the rights to the state against the individual than the rights to the individual against the states. Notably, no democratic country in the world has made preventive detention as an integral part of the Constitution, and as has been made in India. No constitutional philosophy. Preventive detention. Article 22 takes With the substance of the chapter on fundamental rights, it confers the arbitrary powers of the state and negates individual liberty. It justifies the criticism that the Constitution of India deals more with the rights of the states against the individual them. Again, with the rights individual against the state. Notably, no democratic country in the world has made preventive detention as an integral part of the constitution, as has been made in India. According to some critics, the chapter okay. According to some critics, the chapter on the fundamental rights is not the product of any philosophical principle. Sir Ivor Channing expressed this review when he said that fundamental rights proclaimed by the Indian Constitution are based on the no constitutional philosophy. The critics say that this creates difficulty for the Supreme Court and High Court in implementing the fundamental rights. According to some critics, the chapter on fundamental rights is not the product of any philosophical principle. As Sir Ivor Jennings expressed this view when he said that the fundamental rights proclaimed by the Indian Constitution are based on no consistent philosophy. The critics say that this creates difficulty for the Supreme Court and High Court in interpreting the fundamental rights. Significance of the fundamental rights. Significance क्या है fundamental rights के? In spite of this above criticism and shortcoming, the fundamental rights are significant in the following respects. They constitute the bedrock. They constitute the bedrock of democratic system of the country. Okay, they provide necessary conditions. They provide necessary conditions for the material and moral protection of man. They serve as a formidable bulwark of individual liberty. They facilitate the establishment of rule of law in the country. They protect the interests of the minorities and weaker section of the society. They strengthen the secular fabric of the Indian state. They check the absoluteness of the authority of the government. They lay down the foundation or stone of social equality. Okay. They check absoluteness of the authority of the government. They lay down foundation stone of the social equality and social justice. They ensure the dignity and respect of individual. Okay, they facilitate the participation of peoples in the political and administrative process. Rights outside Part 3. Besides the fundamental rights include Part 3. There are certain other rights contained in the part of the Constitution. These rights are known as constitutional rights or legal rights or non-fundamental rights. Okay, besides fundamental rights included in the Part 3, there are certain other rights contained in the parts of the Constitution. These rights are known as constitutional right or legal right or the fundamental rights. The rights outside Part 3. Non-fundamental rights, there no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of laws. Article 265 in Part 12. Okay, Part 12. No person shall be deprived of the property of his property save the authority of law. Article 300. Part 12. Sorry. Hello? হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ কে না আমি ফোন করিনি তো হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ ভালো আছি তো ফোন করিনি কিন্তু হ্যাঁ তারপরে প্রিপারেশন হচ্ছে তো চাকরির প্রিপারেশন চলছে তো সিএইচএসএল। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, আমার ভিডিওগুলো দেখতে পারিস? হ্যাঁ, আমার ভিডিও দেখবি তাহলে হয়ে যাবি, ফ্যাটাফ্যাট আইপিএস হয়ে যাবি। ডেলি ডেলি 10টা করে ভিডিও ছাড়ি, ওই 10টা ভিডিও যদি ডেলি দেখতে পারো না, তো 4 বছর পরে আইএফএস কনফার্ম। ঠিক আছে। হুম। ঠিক আছে, ভালো করে পড়। হুম। হুম। ঠিক আছে। Sorry, trade, commerce and intercourse, okay, throughout the territories of India shall be free. Article 301 in part 13, no person shall be deprived in his property save by authority by law, okay, of law. Article 300 in the part 12, trade, commerce, intercourse throughout the territory of India shall be free. Article 301 part 13. For the election of the election of the Lok Sabha of the on the state legislative assembly shall be on the basis of adult suffrage. Article 326 part 15. Okay, even though the above rights and also equally justiciable, they are different from the fundamental rights. In case of the violation of the fundamental rights, the aggrieved person can directly move to the Supreme Court for its enforcement under Article 32, which is in itself a fundamental rights. But in the case of violation of the above rights, the aggrieved person cannot be able the constitutional remedy. He can move to High Court or by an ordinary suit or under Article 2026 right jurisdiction of High Court. Even though the above rights and also equally justiciable, they are different from the fundamental rights. In case of the violation of the fundamental rights, the aggrieved person can directly move to the Supreme Court for its enforcement under Article 32, which is in itself a fundamental right. But in case of the violation of the above rights, the aggrieved person cannot avail the constitutional remedy. He can be moved to High Court and or ordinary suit under Article 36 right jurisdiction of the High Court. Article related to the fundamental rights at a glance. Okay, article number, okay, subject matter. Article 12 defines definition of state. Article 13 laws inconsistent with or in derogation of the fundamental rights. Definition of state. Article 20, 12 and 13 law inconsistent with or in derogation of the fundamental rights. Okay, so equality with 14 equality before law, right to equality, equality before law. 15 prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex and place of birth. 16 equality of equal opportunity in matters of the public employment. Abolition of untouchability. 17. 18 abolition of titles. Right to freedom. Right to freedom of religious. Okay. Right to freedom. 19. Protection of certain rights regarding freedom of speech. Article 20. Protection in respect to conviction for offences. Protection of lives and personal liberty. Article 21A. 21A. Right to education. Right to education. 21A. Please remember. Article 22. Protection against arrest and detention in certain cases. Okay. Right against exploitation. Article 3. Prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Article 24. Prohibition of employment and of children in factories. Okay, prohibition of employment of children in factories. Right to freedom of religion. Right to freedom of religion. 25. Freedom of conscience and free profession, practice and propagation religion. Freedom to manage religious affairs. Okay, freedom as to payment of taxes for promotion of any particular religion. Article 22(8), freedom of as to attendance or religious instruction or religious worship in certain educational rights. ठीक है, तो प्रोटेक्शन आर्टिकल 22 प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ अगेंस्ट अरेस्ट एंड डिटेंशन, ओके, सर्टेन cases, okay, okay, right against exploitation 23, prohibition of traffic and human beings, the right to exploitation, okay, right, prohibition of traffic and human beings, first level article 23, and article 24 prohibition of employment of children in factories, right to freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, free provision of practice, prorogation of religion, and article 26 freedom of managed religious affairs, article 27 freedom of payment, taxes, promotion, again, particular religion, freedom of the attendance in religion instruction or religious worship, certain educational institution. Freedom of attendance, article 28, freedom of attendance religious, freedom of attendance, freedom to attendance at religious instruction or religious worship in certain educational institution, cultural and educational rights, 29, article 29, protection of interest in minorities, 30, right to minorities to establish and administer educational institution, 31, compulsory acquisition of property, repealed saving of certain laws, 31A, having of laws providing for acquisition of estates, 31B, validation of certain acts and regulations, 31C, saving of laws giving effect on certain directive principles, 31D, giving laws on respect to an anti-national activity, repealed. Right to constitutional remedies. Yeah, right to constitutional remedies में 32, remedies for enforcement of right enforced conferred by this part. 32A, constitutional validity of states state laws not to be considered in proceeding under article 32, repealed. Constitutional validity of states laws not to be considered in proceeding under article 32, repealed. Power of parliament to modify in religion conferred by this part, okay, in their application into forces, restriction on rights conferred by this part, while martial laws in it is in force in any area, restriction on right conferred by this part, while martial laws is in force in any area. 35, litigation to give effect provision to the provision on the part. Notes and reference, Magna Carta, this charter, rights issued King John of England in 1215 on the basis of the okay, barons. This is the key first written document relating to the fundamental rights, Magna Carta. Okay. Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala 1923. Okay, and DC observed no man is above in the law. Okay, but every man, whatever his rank or condition, is subject to the ordinary law of the realm and amenable to the jurisdiction of the ordinary tribunals. Every official from the Prime Minister down to a constable, as a collector of taxes, is under the same responsibility to every act done without level mystification at okay. Okay, okay, यहाँ पर देखिए, okay, whatever the realm of the amendable jurisdiction or ordinary tribunals, every official from the Prime Minister down the considerable or a collector of taxes is under same responsibility to act done without legal justification as any other citizens. Introduction to the study of law of the Constitution. Edit the second provision, edit first Amendment Act 1951. The first by virtue of the Article 371D inserted the Sector 32 Constitutional Amendment Act 1973, Article 371D has been extended to the state of Telangana by the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. The first Backward Classes Commission was appointed in 1953 under the chairmanship of the Kaka Khilakar. Its subject submitted its report in 1955. In 1963, the Supreme Court ruled that more than 50% reservation of jobs in a single year would be unconstitutional. Again, Indra Sahani and in versus Union of India 1992, and the Tamil Nadu backward classes, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes reservation of seats and educational institution and of the appointments of the post in the service under the States Act 1994. Balaji Raghavan versus Union of India 1996. The provision of cooperative societies was made in the 97th Constitutional Amendment Act 2011. If 10B 11 A.K. Gopalam versus State of Madras 1950. Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India 1978. The Constitutional Amendments, the Constitution 86th Amendment Act 2002 is the right of children to free and compulsory education 2009 come into force. Okay, originally known as Suppression of the Immoral Traffic of Human and Give Girls Act 1956. The Hindus shall be construed as including a reference to persons including the Sikhs, Jains and Buddhist religion. The reference to Hindu religion and institutions shall be constructed accordingly. Okay. Secretary of the Melankara Syrian Catholic College. The second provision, 15th Constitutional Amendment Act 1963, added the first Constitutional Amendment Act 1951, amended 4th, 17th and 44th Amendment. Okay, IR Kohela versus State of Tamil Nadu versus State of Kerala. Okay, here but they are through the entry and then name number of the 284 actual total 82. Okay, Article 39B, 39C, 39B. The state shall direct the policy toward securing that the ownership and control the merit material resources of the community and are so distributed as best to subserve of common good. Article 39C say the state shall direct the policy towards the securing the personnel of the economic system and does not recruit in the wealth of and means production of the common detriment. Kesananda Bharati as a state of Kerala. Okay, Minerva Mills as a Union of India 1980. Okay. Sir Ivor Jennings wrote a thread of the 9th century of the liberalism runs through it. Okay, there are consequences with the political problems of the Britain in it. There is a relics of the bitter experiences in opposition to British rule, and there is evidence of a desire to further reform some of the social institutions of which time and circumstances have different development of India. The result is a series of complex formula. तो कंप्लीट हो गया है. इसके बाद देखेंगे हम डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल ऑफ स्टेट पॉलिसी के बारे में नेक्स्ट चैप्टर. ओके.